killed in the thousands in countries across the world. It also, I think, should be concerned because U.S. citizens as well are being targeted. So to the extent that people may be less concerned about what's happening in the rest of the world, they should at least know that citizenship doesn't protect you either.
There's a couple of reasons Americans should be concerned. One is that these drone attacks are not making us safer. On the contrary, they're making more people hate the U.S. government, and so they're keeping the wars and the cycle of violence going. And the other is that it's not just over there, and it's not just killing other people. The U.S. has already killed American citizens overseas with drones, and the FBI director has said that he is not sure whether the drones could be used to kill Americans here at home, meaning that that's an open question. We know that the U.S. airspace is going to be opened up extensively for drones in the coming years, and that every police department in this country is going to want to get its hands on drones. These will not just be for surveillance. Already they're talking about the less than lethal use of drones at home. So I think for populations that are already being targeted, immigrant populations, Muslim populations, the African American community, even the peace community or dissident groups in the United States should be very concerned about drones here at home.
Well, first of all, they should be concerned because this is a technology which is being used throughout the world by the superpower United States. And what will happen if the other countries follow this same example? Now, just suppose that in the region where I've come from, India and Pakistan, they have issues against each other, and now following American example where you can violate one country's sovereignty and go in and use drones against any potential target. So what if India starts using it, and then Pakistan starts using it against India, and then China starts using it against India or Iran, and goes against Israel? So we can just start a new war around the world because of this technology, and this is what the Americans should be really concerned about. And the second concern Americans should have is that somehow they're not making an informed judgment. They need to make the informed judgment, and that can only be if there is enough information coming out about the existing program from the agency, which is so far not accountable to anyone. There's no congressional oversight over this program.
The use of drones by America is shrouded in secrecy. I asked our experts, how does America justify their use?
Well, the only justification which they say publicly is that they are making America safer and taking out any potential threat against the United States, which is entirely a wrong thing they're telling the people, because it's certainly not making America or Americans safe, because you're going after people who most of them are civilian, because the program itself is flawed, and you're actually creating more enemies, and then in certain areas you're fueling extremism. I have another way of putting it, is that I believe that first you had one Palestine and now you're just creating another one.
The United States is a superpower. It doesn't have to justify. It has the might, and might makes right. And unfortunately, this program is not very well known to the American people because a lot of it is carried out in secrecy by either the CIA or the Joint Special Operations Command that also operates in secret.
Well, I think that what amounts to is we get caught up in this, and what's happening. The guys that build the drones are bribing our congressmen through campaign contributions and job offers and the president and administration to use these things, because it's tremendously profitable. And the way our contracts are written, they just make all kinds of money, and then the people that are writing the contracts are going to get a job with those guys later on too. So follow the money is usually the thing, and but it's certainly not logical or moral or legal.
But when U.S. officials are forced to talk about this program, they say it conforms to international law because we are in imminent danger by people who are trying to attack us, and so we have the right, as our enemies travel from place to place, we have the right to travel from place to place to pursue them. It also says, the U.S. government says it has the right because in the days after 9/11, without much discussion, the U.S. Congress quickly passed a law authorizing the president to use force against anybody who was involved in the 9/11 attacks. And to this day, the U.S. government used that as an internal justification for these wars, even though some of the groups that they are going after, like Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula and Yemen, didn't even exist on 9/11.
We've heard about drone killings abroad, and now drones are coming to America for surveillance. I asked our guests, how will it impact civil liberties?
The ACLU has already said that it is very concerned about the spy society that we are forming in the United States and how the drones will make it so much easier, because you will, in the big drones, you won't even know that there's a drone overhead watching you, and in the small drones, they can come right up to your window and look inside without even entering your house. So anybody that's concerned about privacy rights should be very concerned about the fact that the legislation was recently passed that forces the Federal Aviation Administration to open up U.S. airspace to use of drones by 2015, and we want to get involved with those regulations now, demanding that the FAA have open hearings where citizens like ourselves can be involved in making sure that these regulations are done in a way that protect our privacy rights.
Oh, it would impact to a great deal, because, for example, now the surveillance drones are starting in the United States, and so far there is no law against that. And if the drone is flying in air, they can basically, you have no right to privacy, and they can look into anyone they like. So this is the time when you start putting your concerns out there, saying that, first of all, the international program has to be looked at, because that's not making Americans safer, and at the same time, you'll have to question the domestic drone program, which is for surveillance, because the very basic of drone program is looking into patterns. So are we heading back towards racial profiling and discriminatory laws or practices which had been in the past, and now you're starting it just with a new technology where you'll be just doing it by sitting at a remote control, but doing the same thing which the civil liberties movement in United States have worked for decades?
Most immediately, it violates the international right and the constitutional right to be the right not to be deprived of your life arbitrarily without due process. And due process means something more than a closed presidential process, you know, within the CIA or within secret military command of memos, you know, determining who presents a threat. It's more than that. And so far, that's the basis that's been used to determine targets and to carry out strikes.
According to the Civil Liberties Union, the use of drones in America has been held up so far by the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, over safety concerns, but that agency is under strong industry and congressional pressure to pave the way for domestic deployment. Meanwhile, the technology is quickly becoming cheaper and more powerful. Interest in deploying drones among police departments is increasing, and Americans' privacy laws are not strong enough to ensure the new technology will be used responsibly and consistently with democratic values. I asked our experts, what can Americans do about this?
The first thing we can do is educate other citizens about this, because unfortunately the only poll that I know that has been done about the opinions of American people about drones showed that 8 out of 10 Americans thought it was fine to use drones against terrorist suspects, and that 79% of those said it was fine to use them against American citizens. So we have to educate our fellow citizens about why the use of drones is so pernicious. And then in addition to that, we have to come up with ways to regulate the use of drones. We have to push our Congress to start doing the oversight that they were elected to do. We have to try to take drones out of the hands of unaccountable organizations like the CIA. And we have to work internationally with our partners overseas to try to come up with some international convention, just like the use of landmines and cluster bombs became regulated by the international community, so we have to do the same thing around lethal drones.
Okay, well, what has happened today, our courts and judicial systems are all are all on the sides of the administrations and the congressmen that are getting the money.
I think the starting point is information and education. There is actually, despite the fact that the U.S. government refuses to officially confirm or deny this program still, there is a lot known already. I mean, we talk about the secrecy of the program, and that is, the lack of transparency is a problem, but there is a certain amount of information at this point known. Information that's been documented by journalists, by people, ordinary people in countries like Pakistan and Yemen who are experiencing this, by advocates, by human rights advocates. So this information exists. It's on websites like the Bureau of Investigative Journalists is documenting what's happening in Pakistan. The New America Foundation has been documenting strikes in Pakistan for years. So there's information out there, and the public has a responsibility, I think, to educate themselves about that information. And as far as what is not known, there's, I think, a lot the public can do to demand more information and more transparency from the government. And there is a certain consensus building, I think, in the United States, and a certain momentum to demand transparency and just information, because without knowing, without knowledge, we can't have a meaningful debate in this country about what the government is doing to its own citizens and to people abroad. So I think information is the starting point.
What I have is an approach on the thing. Of course, we need to educate ourselves and see how things are. But I have, we've tried to, and there's some way more obvious crimes like the torture and the murder and the illegal wars we have that we haven't been able to prosecute. But what I have is a plan. Me personally, and I have a lot of people working on it with me, but they're outlined here. We need to list all the things we need to do. And as far as drones are, we can't get a grand jury to indict it. We can't indict a grand jury. Only prosecutors can do that. But anyone can what's called swear out a warrant. You need to have probable cause and do that. Now, so I've outlined that all on a website. Now, when you look at this at a number of people in our justice system, I don't think I putting people in jail. But so I've worked on a thing, I call it humane justice. The idea there is to come up with a way. Humane means to alleviate suffering, and we need to look and see, do we really need all these nonviolent people in prisons? And look at that. And there's a couple of real good educators. There are people, a psychologist named Alfred Adler. I've got their written up on this humane justice and have a way of doing this. And I also think it should be private prosecutions.
First of all, they have to start asking questions. They have to search for the truth, for more information on the issue. They have to ask their representative. This should become an issue of concern. And then the civil liberty organizations, they have to go to courts as well to question government policies. So you have to bring it out on the political stage and also at the judicial, bringing it to courts as well.
Just what do you really know about drones? Most Americans just say yes to whatever the government wants to do. Drones may have been okay as long as they were in someone else's backyard. Now they're coming to your backyard. Will they be welcomed with open arms? Time will tell. For Press TV in Washington, I'm Nisa Islam.